Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Chris James. Organic Man Coffee Trike is the best you can buy. Drop by 4501 McPherson anytime between 6:30 a.m. and 7 p.m., except Sundays. If you can't get here from there, go to organicmancoffeetrike.shop. Life is strange, and it will only get stranger if you drink bad coffee. If you tuned in last week on any podcast platform, you'll have heard me talking about black goo, something found all over our planet. The boys in the white lab coats aren't sure, or they're not saying, what this stuff is. If you tuned in on YouTube, you will have been treated to UFOs some more, the preceding week's show. I guess I said something about things being done to us that somebody took a dislike to. The video got pulled by Big Brother. If you haven't read 1984, you'd best hurry before it gets pulled as well. The Ministry of Truth is getting more powerful each week. I was having a long text message discussion with Adrian about UFOs and things. He lives in Edinburgh and he comes by the UFO festival each year. At the same time as I'm texting, I'm watching UFO Witness with Ben Hansen and Daryl Sims. I had a vendor's table in between these two TV stars back in 2021, where I got this shirt. It was in Edinburgh. I was able to talk to both of these guys as we were setting up our tables, and then whenever there was a lag in the people coming by, I felt kind of short standing in between these two. They're both tall. On the TV, the investigators were interviewing folks who had had alien encounters, aliens from other planets, not from other countries. Daryl Sims has been collecting alien implants for years now. He has quite a collection. The question on why these implants were being stuck inside people's bodies came up, but nobody could say for sure why it was being done. I get curious about things, and so I started digging. Here's what I could find. Daryl Sims, also known as the Alien Hunter, is one of the world's leading experts on alien abduction, and he's investigated over 2,000 alien abduction cases in his career. He is a certified hypnotherapist. Sims has said that he has worked as a former military police officer and a CIA operative. He also taught hand-to-hand combat and self-defense techniques at the academy. Not our academy, but his. Daryl Sims is also interested in ufology and has investigated a lot of cases where people went missing for a while. He warned that most aliens are aggressive creatures, so we should be wary of meeting them. Aliens are not our star brothers, as a lot of people would have you believe. If they were, why do they force people to go with them? Why do they do nasty things to their bodies and then drop them off without so much as a thank you or a gift card to a store or something? For the past several decades, extraterrestrial researchers have been saying alien civilizations have been kidnapping people in order to conduct experiments. Now, this might fall back to what Eisenhower and that alien treaty that the president signed in 1954 that allowed aliens to forcibly kidnap citizens so our government could get access to alien technology. Isn't that quite a deal? They get something and we get something else. Sims said he is adamant about only working with evidence based methods, using DNA tests and collecting samples. He relies on ultraviolet, infrared, and X ray tools in his search. He discovered aliens leave their own kind of a fluorescent fingerprint, something he calls alien sweat, and he continues to test for these clues. Handprints have been found on subjects that were abducted. Abducted sounds a lot nicer than kidnapped, doesn't it? Within 1 day, if examined under ultraviolet rays, handprints can be seen showing too many or not enough digits. Sometimes they have extremely long fingers, or they have unusually sized contact points that are still visible on arms and legs. Daryl hired an artist to take these images and recreate silicone hands that, well, they look like alien hands. They're pretty creepy if you ever get a chance to see them. The researchers of extraterrestrial civilizations say that some people, after being abducted, enthusiastically speak of their experience and talk about the incredible technology of these extraterrestrial races. Quite often, such people don't realize that they have been hypnotized to only talk about the good things that happened while in alien custody. The bad parts are hidden behind layers of false memories. Because of alien technology, they're unable to speak the truth. There are also people who had their memories erased so they can't remember that they were abducted and subjected to various experiments. Once back home, the abductee, kidnapped person, will have no memory of the incident. Over time, a trigger might happen, or maybe a dream, in which the subject begins to remember some bizarre events that did take place. On occasion, this event sounds weird and it's hard for a lot of people to believe. That is because the aliens not only wipe the person's memory, they install a false memory that if the erased event ever does pop back in, it's masked by a story that makes no sense or is easily disproven. The subject is not recalling the abduction, but a story put in their mind to keep the truth further hidden. Daryl Sims had his own close encounter of the nasty kind. When he was 4 years old, the aliens tried to alter his childhood memories, making him believe that he'd seen a clown and trying to make him forget about the meetings and the abduction. Seeing a clown would kind of be the wrong false memory for a lot of people. I don't like clowns. It has nothing to do with the book or the movie It. It has to do with the false pretenses of a lot of these actors. I've met a lot of clowns when they weren't being clowns, and some of them have issues. Daryl said no speech or communication of any kind came from this thing, whatever it was. The arms and the legs were long and skinny, and the body was kind of small. It had a huge head. That sound familiar? Like an upside down teardrop. It was kind of cocked to one side. He said he could see the head. He couldn't see the lower portion of the body, just from the head to an area just above the knees. He said it didn't have a TT or, or a belly button. Now, keep in mind, Mr. Sims was 4 at the time. He wanted to be able to see the creature's feet to know what they looked like. The alien being had a kind of a nasty aroma to it. Sims writes that in December 1980, his wife, 2 children, and he lived in a large ranch house on 4 acres near Huffman, Texas. One night, he awoke suddenly with a feeling of dread. He said, "In the dark, I ran as fast as I could to the living room, where I stood watching in horror. There was my 6-year-old son looking out the window. He was not asleep. He was in a deep trance. They had come, and, like my own dad, I was not there for him. Oh my God, I thought, not my son, too. Unknown to me until years later, my son had rigged a crossbow and a sharp broadhead arrow to automatically shoot the next uninvited intruder into his room. My son's act of desperation could easily have killed any of us in that home if we had inadvertently opened the door in the night to check up on him. My voice does not sound anything like Daryl Sims, but he's got a lot deeper voice than I have. Of course, he's also a lot taller too, so his voice is up here. Sims said he knows of more than 2,000 cases of kidnappings of people by aliens, but he was sure that there are probably millions of them. On his website, Mr. Sims says he has a large collection of alien implants and artifacts to date, and each object has its own fascinating story. In his book, Alien Hunter, Evidence and Truth About Alien Implants, Sims has shared the truth behind alien implants. I just happen to have a copy on my shelf. If you're looking for a good book to read, I highly recommend it. Mine is signed. If you don't show up at the UFO events, it's very difficult to get your book signed. The objects would not contain, or correction, 1994, Daryl was invited to speak at the American Medical Association conference at John Muir Medical Center in California. In front of an audience of medical professionals, he made several predictions about what they would find in regards to genuine alien implants. Objects would not contain technology. The things might look like debris from going through life or some natural object. The tissue surrounding the object would not exhibit inflammation, either chronic or acute. The body would naturally either try to dispel a foreign object or encapsulate it so the body isn't harmed further. There would be nerve cells present in parts of the body where they are not naturally occurring. Besides the metallic object, they would begin to see a biological implant, a cluster of brain cells in another portion of the body. Inspired by the haunting memory of his own implants, at the age of 12, Mr. Sims quietly began collecting alien implants that came from human bodies. Some of these were surgically removed and then given to him by patients, while others were expelled naturally from the body. Sims sees implants as a relatively rare phenomenon, perhaps affecting less than 1% of the abductee population. 1995, he felt the evidence was compelling enough to formally document the removal of objects from two of his most promising cases. Two major studies were done on surgically removing objects and anomalous, and one by, and these objects were studied by New Mexico Tech University and Los Alamos Labs. The results were intriguing, though not conclusive. Blind testing done at Los Alamos Lab revealed extraterrestrial isotopes. The testing done at Los Alamos revealed that the form of metal suggested manufacture as opposed to a natural object. Sims' team of medical and scientific consultants continue to study the evidence of alien implants, both in surgically removed objects and objects still in the body. Much more testing remains to be done, and Sims urges a healthy skepticism while continuing to forge ahead. Just because you have a lump under your skin doesn't immediately mean alien implant, but you should take a few extra steps to find out what it might be. I've contacted Mr. Sims on several occasions concerning alien abductions, regression hypnosis for some people that I've known, and just in aliens in general. A very nice man, easy to talk to, but he's also very busy. Some of these conversations, text messages, would take 2, 3 days to conclude. Ben Hansen, the other star of the show, was born September 23rd, 1977, in Utah. He is one of 6 siblings. From a young age, Ben was encouraged to pursue all of his interests. His father was a coach and involved in a few of Ben's high school teams. His mother was a music enthusiast and enrolled Ben in piano and trumpet lessons. Over the years, Ben developed a strong interest in trying out new things. After graduating from high school, he enrolled in the University of Utah and graduated with a bachelor's degree in sociology with abnormal psychology as an emphasis. He also has a certificate in criminology and corrections and a Spanish minor. Probably speaks Spanish better than I do. Most people speak Spanish better than I do. While in high school, Ben was obsessed with the TV shows like The X Files. He worked for several private and public agencies. Ben went and joined the FBI to become a special agent. After graduating from the academy, he quickly realized that the FBI was not what he wanted to do. It wasn't any Mulders or Scullys, just a bunch of Chester Desmonds and Sam Stanleys. Ben was invited by the Sci Fi Network to work on a reality TV series, Fact or Faked. From there, he became a regular on paranormal shows. Ben had said something about how he was ready to go anywhere that the Travel Channel wanted him to go, and so he gets to appear on a lot of their shows. And yes, that is Organic Man Coffee. Mr. Hansen did see a UFO one time while he was out for a run. It was a huge triangle craft that flew right over his head. His girlfriend saw it as well. As far as I could tell or find out, he said he had never been abducted by aliens that he knows of. The idea of alien implants can be traced to March 1957. The Long John Nebel radio show interview with ufologist John Robinson. Robinson recounted a neighbor's story of being kidnapped by aliens back in 1938 and kept subdued by some small earphone like devices that were placed behind his ears. Massachusetts residents Betty Andreasen said aliens had implanted a device in her nose during her alien abduction in 1967. Their story was published by Dr. Raymond Fowler in the book The Andreasen Affair, which came out in 1978. On the evening of January 25th, 1967, at around 6:30 p.m., Betty Andreasen, along with her parents and 7 children, were at their Massachusetts home in South Ashburnham. A flickering of the lights captured everyone's attention before being plunged into total darkness. Within a matter of seconds, there was a strange glow coming in through the window. It was outside their home. Betty told the kids to go wait in the living room. She was in the kitchen along with her father, who had moved over to the window in order to see what was going on outside. He said he could make out several humanoid looking creatures that were coming out of that light. He could see one of them right outside the window. It turned, it looked at him, and upon making eye contact, Betty's father appeared to go into a trance like state. He was in suspended animation. He didn't remember anything more from that point on. The 5 humanoids came right through the wall and were inside the Andreasen's home. All the family members were placed into the same kind of suspended animation as Betty's father. They then asked Betty to join them outside. To show that they didn't mean her or her family any harm, Becky, the daughter, was released from her suspension for a few seconds. She remembered this incident. Betty agreed to follow these strangers. She said she kind of felt compelled to do so. Betty walked through the wall and was elevated up to a flying saucer. She described various procedures and examinations taking place before entering a tank filled with liquid. She was also given a liquid to drink that had kind of a tranquilizing effect. Tequila or whiskey, maybe? Or perhaps it was a cup of coffee. Hey, I feel very tranquil when I drink my coffee. The next thing she knew, she found herself floating towards another chamber. There were strange voices that were telling her that she had been chosen to show something important to the world. Betty found herself back in her home. The humanoids were still there. They were placing each member of the family into their beds. They were still all in their trances. It wasn't until she underwent hypnotic regression that everything aside from the strange lights and the five creatures entering the room came back in full. Although she would undergo further sessions with Dr. Fowler, the account of her first experience were fascinating. There was a lot of circumstantial evidence that would lend them credence. There were a lot of witnesses that remembered part, if not all, of what had happened. Betty began to remember other abduction experiences during future sessions with Dr. Fowler. Her first experience happened back in 1944 when she was 6 years old. Correction, 7. Over the next few decades, Betty revealed more encounters. On several occasions, she described waking from sleep to find strange entities in her bedroom. Betty experienced seeing other members of her family being abducted as well. There were increasing signs of implants inside their bodies. There were evidence of scoop marks, which looked similar to biopsy tests. Dr. Fowler discovered these marks on his arm as well. Whatever had an interest in the Andreasen's family now seemed to have an interest in him. Betty called these entities angels. She was a religious person, and this was simply the best way for her to interpret these encounters. Many folks began to say that she was just making this all up, trying to get money from people. If they can't discredit the evidence, they attack the witness. There was a Canadian woman named Dorothy Wallace who had a similar experience in 1983. You'll have to decide for yourselves, did this really happen or is this just a money grab? Considering that the Andreasen family told their story and it has never changed, it lends a lot of credence to their having been abducted. Whitley Strieber wrote about alien abductions in general, including reports of unusual implants that were associated with these abductions. His was behind his ear, or no, it was in his earlobe. And when the doctor tried to remove it, the implant moved away from the scalpel. He chased it around inside his ear for several minutes, but he couldn't get a hold of the thing to pull it out. John E. Mack wrote that he examined a 1.5 to 3/4 inch thin, wiry object that was given to him by a 24-year-old woman who said that it had come out of her nose after she'd been abducted. Roger Craven Lear was an American podiatric surgeon, that's a foot doctor, and a ufologist best known as the investigator of alien implants. Lear was born in San Francisco Bay, 1935. His family moved to Southern California when he was 13. He went to the University of Southern California and he graduated with a bachelor's degree of science in 61. And in 64, he qualified as a podiatrist and later became involved in the local chapter of MUFON. At a MUFON conference in 1995, Lear examined x rays from a woman who believed that she'd been abducted. He later extracted two small metallic objects from her and also from a second patient. The objects were analyzed by the New Mexico Institute of Mining and Technology. The lab report made reference to the composition of meteorites. Lear came to believe that the objects were devices implanted by aliens, and this was scientific proof of extraterrestrial experimentation. Lear soon became prominent in the alien abduction and UFO community. He hired a dentist, a radiologist, and a general surgeon to assist him in his practice. Lear said the objects he removed from patients emitted deep space frequency radio waves, had strange magnetic properties, or they contained odd crystalline structures. Lear wrote The Alien in the Scalpel in 1999, describing his implant surgery. He also wrote Alien Implants in 2000. He began appearing on various radio and television shows, talking at UFO conferences. 2003, he traveled to Virginia, Brazil, to investigate the crash of an alien spacecraft, and then he wrote a book, UFO Crash in Brazil, in 2005. Dr. Lear wrote the Smoking Gun article for UNX News magazine, which was published March 2nd, 2014. It was put out just days before Dr. Lear died. He told the publisher that this was the most detailed article he had written to date. Alien nanotechnology, which is believed to be pieces of evidence embedded into abducted humans by extraterrestrials. There is a documentary called Patient 17. I'll talk more about that in a minute. It shows Dr. Lear's 17th surgical removal of extraterrestrial implants. With more than half the people in this world believing in aliens exist, Dr. Lear was not alone in his beliefs. Several years after the surgical removal of their implants, 5 individuals agreed to be interviewed to discuss their before as well as after effects. 1 male and 4 females shared one thing in common. They were all UFO abductees, and they had all seen flying saucers. Dr. Lear and Dr. Sims orchestrated the surgeries with a team of medical professionals and volunteers. The first set of implant surgeries took place on August 19th, 1995 at Dr. Lear's podiatric clinic in Thousand Oaks, California. Pat Horanillo, a 47-year-old man from Houston, Texas, and Mary Jones, 52, who's also from Texas, this was not her real name, had objects implanted in their bodies. Both individuals were interviewed by Daryl Sims and then referred to Dr. Lear for surgery based on their UFO encounters and x rays, which confirmed they had anomalous objects in their bodies. Pat's object was removed from the back of her left hand, his left hand, and Mary's object was taken from her left big toe. The implants were studied by 2 different pathologists and then sent to various independent laboratories for scientific analysis. Tests were conducted by the National Institute of Discovery of Science, NIDS, the New Mexico Tech, and other independent sources. If you watch The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, you'll hear a lot about NIDS. While these objects were being evaluated, another set of implant surgeries took place in May 18th, 1996. Dorothy O'Hara, a 61-year-old female from Palm Springs, and Alice Levy, 40, from Newbury Park, both in California. Each had similar objects removed from their left lower legs. Another worm, another woman. Where did that come from? Not enough coffee. That's got to be it. Another woman. Now I can't talk. Another woman named Licia Davidson, 37, who'd had numerous UFO and alien encounters, had a rare crystalline-like object removed from her foot, January 1997. Dr. Lear said the findings of these implant surgeries are highly unusual. In all these cases, there was virtually no inflammatory response. This is not the usual finding anytime you have foreign objects in your body. Normally, foreign bodies embedded in the tissue result in some type of acute or chronic inflammatory response. They also include fibrosis and cyst formation. The pathology report of the first two surgeries revealed that the metallic objects were encased in a very dense, tough gray membrane consisting of blood protein and skin cells that are usually found in the superficial layer of the skin. The tough biological cocoon encasing these implants were also found to contain nerve proprioceptors. proprioceptors. These implants, the cocoons, also fluoresced bright green when under the ultraviolet light, just like the alien handprints. The implants from the two women from the second set of surgeries did not exhibit metallic properties like the implants from the first set. The spheroid, whitish objects did not contain the tough biological outer jacket or fluoresce under ultraviolet light. These types of implants also lacked the expected inflammatory response. The crystalline like object excised from the foot in the most recent surgery also lacked the tough gray outer membrane and had virtually no inflammation as well. Daryl Sims said in an interview, "It seems that the dense fibrous membrane may have been the person's own surface skin. If this is the case, it appears that the metallic objects are wrapped in a sheath of keratinaceous material. Nerve fibers then surround the tissue and appear to be attached to larger nerves." A series of questions were posed to each of the patients when asked as to whether their implants might have been inserted. Pat Pornillo believed his implant could have been inserted during a UFO encounter he'd had in 1954. He was 6 at the time. Mary Jones recalls two UFO encounters when her metallic objects could have been implanted, both in '69. In the first encounter, Mary commented, "I was on a camping trip with my family while pregnant with my third child. 1 month after Mary's child was born, she had another alien encounter while at home during the night." Dorothy O'Hara and Licia Davidson both said they had no idea when or where the objects might have been inserted. Alicia Levy commented Alice Levy commented that she first noticed a lump on her leg following a UFO encounter involving other witnesses in San Diego in '93. She also noticed a scoop mark on her leg near the object. If the aliens are responsible for implanting objects in bodies of their abductees, are the aliens also cognizant of the fact that these implants have been removed? The subjects were asked, "Did you experience any UFO sightings, alien abductions, odd dreams, missing time, or paranormal events prior to or after the implant surgery?" Mr. Porneo said yes, an unusual set of events took place with another witness involving an orange glowing UFO one evening about a week before the surgery. After the surgery, he noticed that his psychic abilities seemed to decrease. Dorothy said about a week before the surgery, she had a dreamlike abduction experience involving many other people in a large locker room looking facility, waiting in line for what seemed to be a shot being administered to the back of their necks. Also, right before an appointment to meet one of Daryl Sims' associates for an interview, she and another woman had a strange experience. It was like getting stuck in a time warp. She ended up being very late for the appointment. Late one evening after she returned from surgery, she had an alien encounter. Mr. Sims has mentioned that this happens a lot when people have a scheduled appointment for either hypnotherapy or an interview. Sometimes their car won't start. The traffic is unusually bad. There's construction, and it's always there to delay the witness from being interviewed, almost as if it's planned by the aliens. Both Licia and Alice did not recall any unusual events soon before or after their implant surgery. Mary experienced a rare pain and swelling in her toe and foot about a week before the surgery. Mary had pain in her toe where the object was, but as soon as she arrived for her interview with Mr. Sims, the pain went away. Once the implant had been removed, would the aliens continue to come back and abduct these people? All individuals except Mary Jones were able to answer with a yes. Alice elaborated on an abduction she had 2 months after the implant surgery. She said, I went to bed early due to a headache. My husband awoke at 1 a.m. because the whole bedroom was lit up like daytime. He looked at the clock, reached over to touch me, and found I was gone. Oddly, her husband quickly went back to sleep. The next day she felt very ill. She didn't recall anything during the night, but she noticed the next day that their dog had clawed several areas in the house, as if he were trying to escape something very frightening. After the surgery, all five agreed they had some type of change in their moods, their dreams, and their psychic abilities. Mary Jones said she felt a sense of peace after her objects were removed. Dorothy said she felt a tremendous sense of relief after the surgery. Alicia had a dramatic and immediate mood lift after the object was removed from her foot. The most striking changes were noted by Dorothy. She said, I had severe diuretic effect and lost a lot of weight a week after following the surgery. Then my health progressively worsened and I developed angina and edema. This heart problem was a reoccurring complication from a previous illness. I had my late 20s. Oh, she had when in her late 20s. She also experienced extreme fatigue and she could not concentrate. The illness lasted about a month, after which her energy and her health returned a lot better than it had been. Alice and Dorothy shared a common symptom several months after their surgeries. Alice remarked about 8 months afterwards she had shooting pains in her left leg and noticed that the implant scar had turned bright red and it throbbed. This lasted for about a week. Around that same time that she had a strong precognitive vision that later came true in exact detail. Dorothy added that she also noticed a strange reaction in her leg where the scar was about 6 months after the surgery. She said she had shooting pains in her left leg, especially right at the implant site. The incision scar also turned bright red that lasted about a month. Pat, Dorothy, and Mary said they had been in denial about UFO abduction phenomenon previous to their surgery. Both Licia and Alice had a good working knowledge of UFO abductions, and they both believed people were being taken by aliens. Licia stated that her views have not really changed. Alice had thought aliens were demons in disguise. They all agreed that the U.S. government is covering up UFO facts from the general public, especially when it comes to Roswell and the UFO crash there. Four of the five reported a continuation of some type of alien abduction activity. The two women had the biological type implants removed, experienced strikingly similar post surgical changes involving pain, reddening of the incision site, which lasted a short period of time. Personally, I don't believe most aliens are here to help us. Probably to serve man is a better take on things. For the one or two of you that haven't watched The Twilight Zone, To Serve Man was a cookbook. Alien implants are used for mind control to form socially accepted belief systems and shape anti human value, which are used to condition humanity to accept the abuse being handed out by the aliens. Perhaps these implants are there to send a message to the humans being abducted. Oh, these are our space brothers. They only have our best intentions at heart. To serve man. How big would an alien implant need to be in order to send a message to the brain to get the person to do things that they wouldn't normally do? Would it have to be inserted close to the head to get the desired results? Unfortunately, we don't have any answers to these questions. Doctors barely understand 2% of the workings of the brain. How it might be manipulated is even less understood. Some people have been speculating as to what the implants are there for. They say alien implants work in the human body similarly to chemical processes in geoengineering, which is the spraying of chemtrails in the skies in order to manipulate the weather. The construction and raw substances used in alien implants is vast, and some of them are unknown. They can be made of biological, synthetic, etheric substances. These devices are programmed nanobots used in artificial intelligence technology. Alien implants are a bioengineered technology designed to shape the human body into submission to alien agendas, while chemical geoengineering is being used to control the weather. When the alien implants are introduced into the body, they disrupt the electromagnetic energetic balance and the homeostatic rhythm. Many occasions of low-level EMF or radio wave signals have been detected. As the chemtrails, aliens' implants most generally act as a metallic frequency overload and exposure to impact the overall body energies and its auric field. Eventually, this disrupts the body's organism, and as a result, humans become puppets for the invaders. Other than actual alien bodies or flying saucers, alien implants are some of our only physical evidence of aliens visiting Earth and abducting people. These implants come in a variety of shapes and sizes, and they affect many people around the world. Alien implants are small devices, both mechanical and organic tissue based, that are injected or surgically implanted into human abductees by aliens. There have been quite a few abduction cases where later on in life, the abductee found a small device under their skin or even lodged inside the bones as well as in their brains. What the implants are being used for is still a mystery to UFO researchers, but there are many theories as to their alien purposes. Doctors that have removed alien implants have come across many interesting aspects, including a detected field of electromagnetic waves, compounds found previously only in meteorites, mechanical as well as biological properties. Using what has been found about them leads to some believing they are used for tracking purposes, since many of the subjects report being repeatedly abducted throughout their lifetime. Other theories suggest that the alien implants may be used to collect information about the persons involved and then transmit data back to the aliens, or even as some kind of a mind control device. Kind of like how researchers will place a collar or a tag on an animal so they know where they go. Next time you're watching Shark Week and they stab a shark in the dorsal fin and leave a tracking device, just think alien implant. Most people that have alien implants don't know they have them, and most don't even remember coming in contact with UFOs or aliens. Some common symptoms of being abducted and having an implant surgery placed inside you can include an abnormal scar or mark on the body that can't be explained, long periods of lost time, flashbacks and or dreams of being on a surgical table surrounded by weird beings, hard pieces of metallic or plastic like substances under the skin that shouldn't be there, feedback or buzzing from speakers when you're nearby, uncontrollable body movements or actions, painful nasal cavities as if something hard is up there, headaches due to brain implants, and sometimes nosebleeds. I wouldn't use any one of these signs or symptoms to deduce I was abducted and implanted. If you have several, then you might consider contacting the alien hunter and finding out what's going on inside your body. Out of all the UFO alien research, implants are slowly becoming noticed by the scientific community as tangible evidence of real alien abductions because of the number of similar cases featuring out of this world materials. There have been thousands of abduction cases, but with very little evidence except for the subjects themselves' account of what happened. But with physical evidence, stronger cases can be made from the truth of these alien visits. Jeremy Corbell is an investigative filmmaker. You will have heard me mention him on the show 3 weeks ago. He produced documentaries on everything from nanotechnology and aerospace exploration to super weird and unexplained, including some deathbed confessions from former U.S. government officials saying that they knew the truth about UFOs. Originally a skeptic, Corbell was asked to document a surgery procedure by Dr. Lear. Lear was going to remove a mysterious object from a man's leg. Corbell was curious, so he agreed to film the operation, which is now called Patient 17. The object removed from Patient 17 was unusual in appearance, and Lear sent it to the New Hampshire lab for testing. The report found that it contained rare earth elements, some that are even toxic to the human body. Even more compelling, it seemed to emit electromagnetic frequencies, indicating that the object could be some kind of a communication or tracking device. Isotopes are variations in elements. The number of protons is always the same, but the number of neutrons varies, creating stable or radioactive versions of elements. The atomic bomb could only be created when scientists were able to isolate one uranium isotope out of the rest. The lab report showed ratios far beyond terrestrial ratios known on Earth. A journalist, George Knapp, who used to fill in on Coast to Coast on weekends, urged Corbell to quantify the results and have the sample tested numerous times at different labs. A thorough scientific method would be the only way to get real proof that the implant was otherworldly. Corbell was unable to get a sample or find a lab willing to look at it, even if he did. Daryl Sims said that aliens use layers of false memories to disguise what they're doing. A person awakes with missing time, or at some point memories come flooding in where aliens are involved. Today, the thing to do is find a hypnotherapist and find out what's missing. During some of these sessions, things are remembered that sound way too weird to be true. The encounter sounds more like a bad sci fi script, something you'd see on MST3K. If the therapist digs deeper, they will find this memory was implanted to mask the actual event. The aliens wiped the mind to keep what they were doing secret. To be sure this works, a false memory is implanted that, when brought to light, makes people think the abductee is full of nonsense. By putting the subject even deeper under into their subconscious mind, they can sometimes dig out the truth. Hypnotherapists have to use great care to pull the memories from their patients without leading them into saying what the therapist wants to hear. Despite what some folks will tell you, you can implant thoughts and memories if you want. Kate Thorvaldsen was born 1969 in Drammen, Norway. She believes that she has had 3 encounters with extraterrestrials. She couldn't remember all of the alien encounters, so she went and had hypnotherapy to find out what was going on. When she was 3 years old, she had her first experience with an extraterrestrial. It was nighttime, and she was standing in her crib looking out the window. Suddenly, the wall to her left became blurry, and something walked in through it. A humanoid with a big head, big black eyes, came through the wall and seemed to levitate towards her. It stopped in front of Kate and looked at her with its big black eyes. It didn't speak. She made some 3-year-old type noises at it, but instead it communicated with her telepathically, not in words, but in feelings and thoughts, letting her know that it was not going to harm her. The alien went back the same way it had come in. She could see the craft out through the window as it flew away. She actually believed that this had been Santa Claus who had come to visit her. It was close to Christmas, and her mother had said that Santa was going to come for a visit, so Kate just assumed that that was Santa. When Christmas did arrive, she got all excited when her mother said that Santa was coming. But this wasn't the Santa that she had already encountered. It was her grandfather, dressed in a red suit with long white hair and a beard. Kate screamed in fear instead of joy, thinking that this was not the Santa that she'd already met. When Kate was 10 years old, she had her second encounter with the Greys. She mostly kept to herself during this period of her life because she felt that she didn't belong and that she didn't really much care for hanging out with other people. Her bedroom was on the second floor, and she used to go out on the roof when everybody else had gone to sleep, as she would lie there staring up at the night sky. She said she felt like that was her real home. As she was laying there, a bright light appeared. It came closer, and it seemed to pull her from the roof up into the sky. The next thing she remembers, she was laying on a table. There were 3 Greys standing around her, and they inserted something up her nose and into her ears. After that, she couldn't remember anything, and she couldn't smell, like she had lost her sense of smell completely. Have you ever heard Calvin Parker tell about his encounter with aliens? This really ugly female said she wasn't going to hurt him, and then she did. She shoved her finger up the back of his throat and into his sinus cavity. If you get a chance, look him up on YouTube. His story is hilarious, but it's also informative. She said she wasn't going to hurt him. Well, anyway, when Kate was 29 years old, she had her third encounter. It was a winter 1996, and she had borrowed a cabin from a friend so that she could work on her book about her experiences. A friend drove her out to the cabin, which was 12 miles from the middle of nowhere. It was just her and her cat Gizmo, and she kind of enjoyed the solitude and the nature. After a few days, she woke up and discovered she had marks on her forehead. Her eye was slightly swollen and her nose was sore. She thought she might be getting sick. When nighttime was closing in, she started to feel very anxious and she didn't want to go to sleep. So she just kept reading, hoping to keep herself awake, but eventually the Z monster caught up with her and she slipped under. The next day, she called her friend who owned the cabin and they came and picked her up. When she got back to civilization, she noticed that she was hypersensitive to sound. She plugged in her phone to charge, and she said she could hear the charger as it was working. She could hear noise from fluorescent lights, CD players, and other strange noises that she had never heard before. When people spoke, it was way too loud, so finally she shoved some earplugs in to reduce the volume of her surroundings. After a few days, her girlfriend picked her up and then took her home. Her boyfriend had given her some perfume. She'd put some on even though she had no sense of smell. When she was 10, that incident had removed her ability to smell things. She suddenly discovered the perfume smell was intolerable. She had to go wash it off. Her sense of smell had come back in a huge way. One of her girlfriends in Norway was one of the leading UFO researchers. She had access to hyp, hypo, hypnotherapist named Dr. Maurice Jung, who was trained at the Norwegian Academy of Hypnosis. A few weeks later, she went to Oslo for a session with him, and during this hypnosis, she could remember some, but not all, of what had happened at the cabin. She remembers a tall gray and three small grays standing around her. Normally, they didn't seem to wear any clothing, but the taller one had on some kind of a transparent coat. They had put a helmet on her head with some kind of a claw like device over her forehead, which seemed to be there to hold it in place. It might have been this device that had left the marks on her face the next morning. The helmet had instruments that drilled under her eyebrow, thick needles that went into her ears, and a fork like instrument that went up her nose. This was all the information they could retrieve despite several attempts with hypnosis. Sid Goldberg, a friend of Kate's, proposed that she should get some strong magnets. Sid knew that other people with implants had used these magnets in order to find the implants. Kate could feel a triangular shaped object under the skin in her neck, which she tried first with a magnet. To her surprise, the magnet stuck to her skin. She thought there could be more alien implants, so she started checking her upper body. She found 32 places on her body where the magnets would stick. She had two on the nose, two in her forehead, and two in her head around the temples. There were also two in her neck. There were several down her spine, from just beneath the skull all the way down to the sacrum. She discovered five in her upper chest, just beneath her collarbone, and three in a pyramid over her heart. There were two implants in her pelvis bone, several down around her stomach. The reason for all these alien implants is unknown, and she doesn't want to remove any of them because she thinks that it might have an effect on her health. She took some x-rays of her upper body, which she sent to Sid, who had them enlarged and they could see some of these implants. She was planning to raise funds so she can come to either the United States or Canada and get x-rays in a higher resolution and hopefully find some scientists willing to study these alien implants. Kate says that she has odd activities happening to her. One of the latest activities was when she was driving home one night. She could hear a voice inside her head saying that she should turn off the headlights. Well, she did, and she could see a huge light show going on in the sky overhead. This lasted for several minutes and then it stopped. Things would go missing in her home. In 2004, when the tsunami hit the Indian Ocean, she saw a rippling effect in her living room. She would get downloads into her mind that would be astrophysical aspects to it, like showing her how the universe was created or how it works. Kate has written a book about her life. It's called A Hybrid Story, which can be purchased from her website, katethorvaldsen.com/book. I don't think I have any implants in my body, as far as I know. I don't think I've ever been abducted. I have talked to several people who have been visited by Greys and may have some extra electronic devices secreted away under their skin somewhere. We don't know why the aliens are doing this, and we can only guess at this time. Those who do know aren't telling us. It will take more than an act of Congress to get the truth out of them. I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. If you did, spread it around. Like Tony Merkel says, share the show. I don't care how you share it, just share it. Send it on YouTube, send it on email, however it is, or just simply tell people. If you'd like to get one of my books, you can find them at the Organic Man Coffee Strike here in Laredo, or you can get them at Amazon.com, or simply look for me at the next UFO festival if I'm there, if I make it, if my truck don't break down. Well, I made it to Edinburgh this last couple of days, weeks ago. Till next Saturday, this is Chris James for Strange Things and Baby Fly.